Hi, I'm Trish, the designer behind Trish Newbery Design. Today we're going to talk about twin needles. Twin needles are an alternate way of creating a hem on a knit garment. Generally in the garment industry we use a cover stitch machine, but you can mimic this look with a home sewing machine and a twin needle. So let's look at twin needles. Twin needles are designed mainly to use on knit or stretch fabrics. So you're going to need a twin needle that's designed for a stretch fabric. Now these can either be called stretch twin needles or ball needles. What it does is it creates two rows of straight stitching, two rows of parallel stitching on the top of your fabric, and on the underside of your fabric you get a zigzag. Now you can buy different size twin needles. This packet here says it's a 4. So 4 refers to the distance between the needles. And you can get twin needles in different sizes. So here are 3 different sizes to show you. So this is a 4. And I'd probably use that if I was sewing a hoodie hem, something that's a little bit more substantial. And then we can go to a 3, which is 3mm, or a 2mm. And you'd probably use a 2 more on children's wear, baby wear, something like that. So you just need to experiment on spare fabric and just decide which look you like the best. And for this example, I'm going to use a size 3. The machine I'm sewing with today is a Brother SE400, which came with a test twin needle in the package when I got it. I have used that already, but you'll just need to go into a haberdashery shop and just choose whichever twin needle is appropriate for your machine. So just consult the manual of your machine to get the right needle. So it goes without saying, because we're sewing with a twin needle, we're going to need 2 threads coming through the top of our machine. Now sometimes I'll only buy 1 thread in one colour, and I'll need a second thread for the top. So what I do is I just wind a spare bobbin and I can use that as my second upper thread. It's a way of saving money, and it's also really easy. So where does the thread sit? Well, your first row of thread sits on your existing spool pin here, and most machines come with a spare spool pin, which just looks like this and sits over your bobbin winder. For my machine, sometimes they're just 2 prongs and sit on top of here. So if you're like me and you've lost or given away your spool pin to someone else, the only thing you're going to be left with to use is a bobbin winder. So you can put, if you're using the bobbin, on the bobbin winder like that, but just make sure that the tension's loose. If you can see this tension is very firm. You need to make sure that that will wind. So if that won't wind, you're going to be stuck with using something like a cup. Now a small cup is a really good alternative. When you do use it, all I'm going to say is just pop that thread inside it like that, thread your machine, which I'll show you how to do in a moment, and just leave that in the back of your machine, and that will just unwind without that bobbin going anywhere. So that's a good tip if you are a bit stuck. So here is the knit fabric I'm going to show you how to use the twin needle on today. This is just a 200 weight t-shirting fabric. It has stretch. The stretch is going as if it was across the body, and that's what the twin needle will do, will allow that fabric to stretch and the threads not snap when the garment's being worn. Now to do these hems really nicely, it's a good idea to get some knit fusible tape. It's a good idea to get the tape the width of the hem you want to use. If you don't have access to knit fusible tape, what I like to do is just cut strips of fusible interfacing, which in the garment industry is just called fuse, so it has dots on it, in the width of the hem I want to sew. So I just cut strips of this, and if you use a roller cutter on a self-healing mat, you'll find you get a beautiful edge. And it's a really good idea if you can use a roller cutter, because it'll give a nice sharp edge to the turn up of our hem. So I'm just going to go to my iron and fuse that into place, and then we'll come back. So here is my fuse, fused to the wrong side of the garment at the hem area. Oh, and it goes without saying that this is stretch fuse as well. It's fuse designed for knit fabrics. So what the knit fusible tape, or in my case the knit fuse, does is it creates a nice stable edge, and it stops the fabric from tunneling, which is the bumping between the two lines of stitching, and it also helps with stretching that fabric out of place. It minimises it. So if you can use a stay tape, it's a really good idea. It's not essential, but it will give you a very nice result. Alright, so we've got everything we need to get started. The first thing we're going to do is change the needle. So making sure the power is off, I'm just going to take my needle out. I'm going to put that away somewhere safe. I'm going to take my twin needle. Now it has two sides to it. The back is flat and the front is curved, and for my machine the flat part goes to the back. So what I do is I just pop that into the space, push it up as high as it will go, and then use the tool that came with my machine to tighten that up. Okay, so the next thing we need to think about is the foot we're going to use. And my manual has told me to use foot J, and it's also said if I get tunnelings, change to foot N. So I'm going to just install my foot. So my machine has a push button at the back here to drop that presser foot out, and to put it back into place I just line it up and drop the lever down until it snaps into position. So now we're going to think about threading. Now I've got two different colours here so you can see what we're doing. Pop your bobbin into the bobbin holder just like you normally would, and then depending on your machine, thread your first thread as normal, following the guidelines from your book. You can do both threads at the same time, but it can cause some, what's the word for it, tangling as you go. So the first thread, which comes through from your regular spool holder, should go through the left needle, and you might find this easier to thread without that presser foot in place. So there's my first needle threaded like so. I'm just going to pull that through to the back like so. So then decide how you're going to use your second thread. If you have the ability to use a bobbin and that will wind freely, you don't want any stress on that. See how that's pulling? We don't want to use that. So I'm going to use the cup with my thread in it. And what I'm going to do is just simply put it behind my machine and then thread it as normal, as if it was on a spool pin. Now you can't use your automatic threader for this because it won't work with the twin needle. So go ahead and just thread that on the right hand needle. And when that's threaded, make sure that goes under your presser foot and just make sure it's caught in the correct place. So now you need to turn your machine on. I'm going to set my machine up with a straight stitch, so that's just the default stitch, and I'm going to make my stitch length a little bit longer than normal. So this is on 2.5, and what I want to do is I want to change it from 2.5 to maybe 3 or even 3.5 depending on your fabric type. The other thing you need to make sure, if you are using a machine like this, that you've selected a twin needle so the machine knows what you're doing. So that should be it. We're ready to go now. So take your fabric and place it wrong sides together, so I'm folding it on the edge of my fuse tape, or wherever you want your hem turn position to be. And when we sew this from the right side of the fabric, so we turn this over. But when we stitch, what we want to do is make sure one needle is on this side of that raw edge and one needle is on this side of the raw edge. So we want to try and make sure our zigzag catches that raw edge. So turn this to the right side, place it under your presser foot, and you really want to be getting those twin needles exactly either side of that ridge that you can feel. So either wind down so you can place the beginning stitch in the correct place, or just use your needle drop there. So when you're ready, make sure that's nice and even, and you can tell a lovely fold has been created using the edge of that fuse tape there. And then stitch along. If you're nervous about doing it, just do a couple of weird turns on your hand wheel before you start, and then just line up wherever your edge is with your guide and just stitch. So here we have our finished hem. As you can tell, there's no tunneling on this side, and we have 2 rows of parallel stitches. Now on the back we have a zigzag. One side of the zigzag is on the single layer, the other is on the double layer. So thanks for joining me. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and you can join my Facebook discussion group. The link's in the description below. Thanks very much, and I'll see you again soon.